Welcome to another podcast in which we'll be talking about James Mahu's essay, The Journey of Self-Discovery. Sophia and Phil greet you from the microphone.
Hello to everyone.
You know what's fascinating, Phil? Most spiritual teachers tell us to passively wait for truth to find us. But I recently discovered some compelling evidence that suggests this approach might be completely backwards.
That's quite an intriguing challenge to conventional wisdom. What led you to question this common teaching, Sophia?
Well, I've been exploring this idea that transformation requires both active engagement and surrender. Think about it. Even if there were only two people on Earth seeking truth, their paths would be entirely different. We're all navigating what you might call our own local universe.
Could you break down what you mean by local universe? That's an interesting concept.
Picture it like this. Every moment, every experience, every thought that makes up your existence is completely unique to you. Even identical twins living in the same house would have fundamentally different experiences of reality.
That's making me think about how we often try to find common ground with others. Are you suggesting that might not be the most meaningful approach?
Here's what's really mind-bending. Our differences actually connect us more deeply than our similarities. It's like each of us is a unique note in an infinite symphony, and it's the diversity of those notes that creates the beautiful harmony.
So if we're all so uniquely different, how do we maintain any sense of shared understanding or community?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. We're simultaneously finite beings in these temporary bodies and infinite beings connected to something vast and eternal. It's like being both a wave and the ocean at the same time. The key is recognizing that our uniqueness doesn't separate us. It actually reveals our deeper connection.
That's quite a profound shift in perspective. How does this play out in our everyday lives?
Think about how we get caught up in what's called the human-created collective universe. All our social programming, cultural conditioning, and agreed-upon realities. We become so focused on fitting in that we often lose sight of our authentic nature.
You know, that reminds me of how social media has amplified this tendency to conform. We're constantly comparing ourselves to others' carefully curated lives.
Exactly right. And here's what's fascinating. The suggestion is that we don't need to make some grand external show of understanding these truths. We can begin by practicing this awareness internally, letting it naturally influence our actions and interactions.
That's actually quite liberating. It takes away the pressure of having to prove anything to anyone else.
And here's another crucial aspect. We're all developing at our own perfect pace. There's no universal timeline for this journey of understanding. What might take one person years could unfold for another in a moment of sudden insight.
But how do we avoid judging ourselves or others for being at different stages of this process?
That's where it gets really interesting. Judgment itself is described as a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are and why we're here. It's like wearing glasses that distort our vision of reality. But here's the key. We shouldn't even judge ourselves for judging.
That's quite the paradox. How do we practice this kind of radical non-judgment in a world that seems built on comparison?
The suggestion is to start with ourselves, in our inner world. Think of it like learning to play an instrument. At first, you practice alone, making mistakes, finding your way. Then gradually, that internal practice begins to manifest externally.
That's a helpful metaphor. But what about our relationships and connections with others?
Here's something fascinating about that. Even our closest relationships and shared cultural experiences are, in a sense, agreed upon realities. But our individual journey of understanding doesn't depend on these agreements. We can honor these connections while still maintaining our unique path.
So we're not trying to escape the shared world, but rather see it from a different perspective?
Precisely. And when we begin to grasp this through practicing unconditional love, something remarkable happens. We start to experience our connection to everything and everyone while maintaining our unique identity.
That makes me think about how often we try to force changes in our external world before we've done the internal work.
Yes, and here's another crucial insight. This understanding isn't just intellectual. It has to be lived and experienced. All the theories and explanations are just signposts pointing to something that must be directly experienced in our own unique way.
That reminds me of how different spiritual traditions all seem to be pointing to the same truth, just using different languages and symbols.
Exactly, and what's really powerful is that this diversity of expression is not just acceptable, it's essential. Each of us brings something unique to this cosmic understanding. Our individual journey is like a specific frequency that adds to the universal harmony.
That's quite different from how many traditional spiritual paths present themselves, isn't it?
Indeed, and here's why that matters. When we truly understand that our uniqueness is not just allowed but necessary, it changes how we approach everything. We stop trying to force ourselves into predetermined molds and start trusting our own inner guidance.
That must require quite a bit of courage to trust our own path when it might look different from others.
It does, but here's the beautiful part. This understanding actually makes things simpler, not more complicated. We don't have to maintain different faces for different situations. We can simply be authentic, knowing that our authentic self is exactly what's needed.
Looking back at everything we've discussed, what do you think is the most important takeaway?
I'd say it's this: our unique way of being in the world is exactly what's needed. We don't need to become something else. We just need to fully become ourselves. And in doing so, we contribute to the greater harmony of existence in a way that only we can.
That's really beautiful. It makes the spiritual journey feel more accessible and personal.
And perhaps that's the greatest truth we can discover: that our individual path, with all its quirks and seeming imperfections, is perfectly designed for our unique journey of understanding who we are and why we're here.
Yes, I think so. Now it's up to the listeners to study the essay for themselves. It will certainly help them to understand the concept of self-discovery in a deeper way. You can find the link in the text below the video.
Goodbye from the mic. Sophia.
See you soon. Phil.